Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles. I am Donnie, your host, and with me is a man that says, for all of you who says talk is cheap, you've never called a 1-900 number at $5.99 per minute. It's Dale.
That's right, man. That'll blow your phone bill up in a minute. You got a lot of explaining to do when you get that $400 phone bill.
That's exactly right, man. Who is Sasha?
Oh, no, but she talks real nice.
Yeah. I think she was just being nice, though.
Yeah. So I think she likes me.
What's going on, dude?
What's up, man?
How are you, man?
Oh, doing well.
I'm glad to be recording. We're running a little behind recording. We've had life get in the way, bud.
It'll be there.
That's it.
Well, I guess it's better not being there.
That's it. I like being alive.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
You got any shout-outs for us? Any kind of thing to talk about?
A little bit. I bet I would just give a shout-out to all the Crack House family who went over to the merch page and took advantage of a big discount they had this weekend and bought up some stuff. We really appreciate you guys.
There was some sales this week.
Thanks. And a shout-out to you and I, Donnie. How about a shout-out to us?
Man, I appreciate you, bud.
All right, yeah, you too, bud.
Yep.
Let's knock this thing down.
And go on to the website and click that gas money button and leave us a tip.
Yeah.
Show us how much you appreciate us. And go on to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, give us a review, all you podcast listeners. And if you don't use iTunes, go over to Facebook and give us a Facebook recommendation.
That's right.
Yeah, it helps.
All that good stuff. And then run over to YouTube and click on subscribe.
Yep, we appreciate it, guys. We really do.
Tell your mom and them.
Yep, and check our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Dale's been working on Twitter here lately. So
you've been trying.
Yeah,
I'm a little behind.
You do good. All right, bud. We're gonna get into our episode, man.
All right, man. Time to get a little serious.
Talk some true crime.
All righty.
This week our case we're talking about is Rodney Alcala, and he is the dating game killer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just go ahead and say it now. This is another one with a corny name, kind of like the Taco Bell guy, but there's nothing corny about how he is. He's a pretty sadistic guy.
He is. And we're going to get into talking about Rodney Alcala. His full name is Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Buquar. But he goes by Rodney James Alcala. And he was born on August 23rd, 1943.
In
San Antonio, Texas.
Excuse me.
And he had an older brother, Raul, an older sister, Marie Therese. He had a younger sister, Marie Christine. So I think Rodney was sort of the middle child of all that.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. Now, Dale, they were living in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, they all lived together in the house, including Rodney's grandmother lived there.
Yeah.
And when she became ill, she told him that she'd like to spend her last years back in Mexico. So that's when they
moved back to Mexico.
Yeah, they took the whole family, moved back to Mexico for her wishes.
Mm-hmm. And they were there, I think, about 3 years.
Yep, about 3 years. And then
she passed away.
And then his father left the family and came back to the United States.
He pretty much abandoned them, didn't he?
Yeah, he just rolled.
Yeah, that was it. That was it for him.
Yep. Soon after this, they didn't have much ties there in Mexico either, so they decided to just pack up, and then they moved to L.A. So they moved out to Los Angeles.
Rodney's mom moved them all back to Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah, Dale, after they moved back to California, Rodney finished the 8th grade, and he attended a high school at a private Catholic school called Cantwell Sacred Heart of Mary.
Right.
And during his last semester there in high school, he felt like he had had enough of his religious education.
Yeah, because he had been in Catholic school since elementary school, even before they had moved to Mexico. Mm-hmm. He was in St. Joseph Catholic Elementary, and then he moved on to Mount Sacred Heart. But even in Mexico, he also had him in a Catholic school, and so he'd had enough of that.
So he wanted to attend a public school.
He did.
Yeah.
So she granted his wish and let him go to public school.
That's right.
And then he graduated in 1960 from Montebello High School in California.
Now, in 1961, at the age of 17, Rodney joined the United States Army. And he was wanting to be a paratrooper.
Yeah.
And he was located here in North Carolina at Fort Bragg.
Man, we can't get away from it.
No, we got him here in North Carolina.
Yep.
But he ended up being, instead of a paratrooper, he ended up being a clerk.
That was close. Missed it by that much.
Yeah. So paratrooper, clerk. Yeah. They're in the same branch of service there.
Yeah. They gave him an IQ test and he scored I think it was 140.
Yeah, it was way up there.
Right near genius level.
Very, very high.
So he's a pretty smart guy. I guess just everything kind of imploded on him when he was clerk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while he was in the Army, his father unexpectedly passed away in Tulare County, California, which the whole family attended the funeral. So I guess they kept tabs on each other, even though he split and left them abandoned.
I guess they did.
And then maybe this had something to do with his mental breakdown that would come. Because right after this, well, the next year, that was in January of '62 when his dad passed away. And in '63, he unexpectedly showed up at his mother's door. She was making dinner and heard somebody come in the door and turned around and expecting to be her daughter, and it was him. And he had hitchhiked all the way from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, nearly 3,000 miles all the way to his mother's house. And he had went AWOL, which is absent without leave, which is a no-no if you're in the Army.
He was medically discharged from the U.S. Army after having a nervous breakdown, and he was diagnosed with an antisocial personality disorder and a narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, malignant narcissism, psychopathy, and even sexual sadism.
Yeah, a whole lot of stuff.
He had a lot of people living in his brain there.
Right. Yeah, when he showed up at his mother's house, she was kind of freaked out and said, "You need to turn yourself in." So he went to a local recruiter and turned himself in, and that's when they had him diagnosed with all that list of stuff he just gave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then actually, when he was in the hospital, they let him go home when he began to feel more like himself.
Oh, well, wasn't that nice? Yeah. Yeah. Now, we're going to jump just a little bit ahead, about 4 years to September the 25th, 1968. Now, Dale, this was...
Rodney's 25 at this point.
Yeah, and this is Rodney's first known crime. And Dale, an eyewitness in Los Angeles, called the police after watching him lure an 8-year-old girl into his car.
Yeah, he said that he was sitting on the freeway and it was just stop and go traffic. I think it was on Hollywood Boulevard.
It was on Hollywood Boulevard, yeah.
Yeah, it was on Hollywood Boulevard, and he was watching this car, and he'd seen the little girl. She was like just walking up the sidewalk and carrying her books, and she was going to school, and he noticed that the car pulled up, and he looked, and it didn't have any license plates on it, which was weird. And then it stopped, and you could see the little girl. She kind of shake her head and walk off, and the guy saying something to her, and then he kept just creeping up right beside her, and finally she come over to the window, and he said something to her, and she got in the car. And later we'd find out that she had told him she couldn't talk to strangers, and she wasn't talking to him, and that's when he used his charm to tell him that, "Oh, don't you remember me? I know your parents. They said it's okay." So, and plus I have a really cool photo I want to show you. Your parents already saw it.
Let's go back to my place and I'll show you that photo.
Yeah. So she got in the car.
Yeah. And she went back to his apartment.
And luckily the guy that you were talking about followed him.
Yes.
Because he knew something was up with this. It just didn't look right, and he just had that feeling that...
And he called the police.
Yeah. He followed him all the way to the apartment and watched him get out of the car, and said when they got out of the car, she was stutter stepping and looking around like she didn't recognize where they were, and he knew that something was wrong. And as soon as they walked into an apartment, he called the police. Yeah. So I'm assuming he had a payphone or something, because then he wasn't no cell phone.
Yep. And just shortly after the police arrived, they knocked on the door.
Yep.
And Rodney came to the door saying that he just got out of the shower.
Yeah, he said he looked through the blinds and said he appeared to not have no clothes on.
Yeah, that's the way it looked.
Yeah, said he just got out of the shower.
He just got out of the shower, and give him about 10 seconds to get dressed.
He said, "Well, give me a few minutes." And the police officer said, "I'll give you 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Open this door. I need to talk to you."
And Rodney shut the door, and it was just a couple seconds later. He
kicked the door in.
He kicked it in. And when the police officer went in, he saw the little girl's shoes laying there.
Yep. And there was a trail of blood from the living room into the kitchen.
And it was in the kitchen there was a little girl laying there in a pool of blood. Yeah. He said it looked like more blood that could possibly be in her body.
Right. And she had been hit in the head and had a metal bar laying across the throat.
There was a 10-pound metal bar.
Yeah.
And this little girl's name was Tylee Shapiro.
Yep.
And no sign of Rodney Alcala.
Well, I think he probably just went straight to her to see if he could do anything. Yeah. It appeared like she was dead. And I guess during all the commotion, Rodney had bolted out the back door.
And just when he was starting to take off after Rodney, he heard that little girl.
Yep. gasping for air.
Gurgling, gasping for air. So she wasn't dead.
Right. Well, when he first went over, he grabbed a towel and removed the bar just to not mess up any prints or anything, but just in case they took it off her neck.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't sure if she was dead or not. He assumed that she probably was with the amount of blood he saw.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what he heard, because she was fighting for breath, and then he went back to her to try to get her stable while help come.
Yeah. That was the main thing. That was the right thing to do anyway.
Yeah.
Now, this little girl survived.
She did.
Yeah. And we'll talk about her a little bit later on.
Yeah. A couple times.
Yeah. But now...
So props to the guy who seen that and knew something was wrong.
Exactly.
Because you don't get a whole lot of
that little girl,
good news stories in these podcasts.
That little girl would be dead if it hadn't been for that Good Samaritan. Now, Rodney was gone. He had escaped out the back door.
Yep.
Nowhere to be found. Now, inside of his apartment, they searched it, and they found a lot of his belongings.
Oh, yeah, because he just ran. He just took off, left everything.
They found his UCLA college ID.
Yep, so they had his name and his picture.
Yeah, they knew everything about him.
Right.
But Rodney...
Except for where he was.
Yeah. But Rodney had skipped town. He went to New York.
Yeah, well, they went to UCLA to look for him. He even talked to some of his professors, and they all swore that it was definitely had the wrong guy.
So he was a nice guy.
This guy couldn't hurt a fly.
Exactly.
You got the wrong guy. There's some kind of mistake here. This can't be him.
Just friendly, nice guy.
Yep.
But Rodney had left town. He went to New York.
Right.
And he changed his name.
Yep. He showed up as...
I guess in 1968, you could just change your name and become somebody else.
Well, he just walked in and say, I'm so-and-so, and that's it.
Yeah.
Nothing, I guess, else is pre-computers, nothing's connected.
Yeah. But Rodney got accepted into New York School of Arts undergraduate program under the alias of John Berger.
Berger.
Yeah, Berger.
Mr. Berger.
Yeah. And he was studying under film director and screenwriter Roman Polanski.
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild, isn't it?
Yeah, because, those of you who don't know Roman Polanski, I mean, he directed the movie Rosemary's Baby.
Yep.
And his wife was Sharon Tate.
Yep, who was killed by the Manson family.
Yeah.
Which will be like a year after this.
Yeah, so...
So his I guess, I was going to say a serial killer kid took her out, but I guess you really can't classify.
Yeah, Manson never killed anybody.
Right. Anyway, so, yeah, it's kind of odd that would happen, somebody would kill him, but anyway, this guy's working under him.
Yeah. They say there's a lot of people apply to this New York School of Fine Arts.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy to get into, but, smooth talker gear.
And you got 300 to get in, and that's the cream of the crop.
Well, with his super high IQ and smooth ways.
Mm-hmm.
And a brand new name.
Yep, brand new name. Now, Dale, while he was at the New York University School of Arts, he also got hired as a arts and drama counselor at a summer camp for girls.
Yeah, in New Hampshire.
Yeah, George Mills, New Hampshire. Still under this alias, John Berger.
Right. And I think it was all girls deal?
It was all girls. Now, he worked there for about 3 years.
Yeah, 3 summers he worked there.
Yeah.
He was a counselor undercover.
And it was one day, these 2 girls, they went there to the local post office.
Yeah. It came up a huge rainstorm.
Yeah.
And it was pouring rain, so they just ducked in there and figured they'd wait out the rain. And so they were walking around kind of like it was a museum, looking at all the stuff in the old post office.
And they saw the most wanted photos.
Right.
And they had the top 10 most wanted photos there. And Rodney was on there.
Yep.
But they said, that looks just like our counselor.
Right. So they were going through them, looking at them, and they were this guy and that guy, and, and just making up stories. And all of a sudden they run across him and they took their breath, and they're like, nah, it can't be him.
That looks like Mr. Berger.
Yeah, the name's not right, so it can't be him. And they're trying to talk themselves into going, well, everybody has a double. It's got to be that.
But they went back to their camp and talked to their director, the dean of the art camp.
Right.
And
told him what they saw.
Yeah, and he reported it.
Yeah. Well, he kind of blowed it off, too, at first. He's like, well, but then the next day, or either that or on the way home that day, he stopped in to see him for himself.
Yeah.
And then he basically tried to do the same thing, saying, well, it kind of looks like him. But he did call the next morning.
He did call the FBI.
Yeah, he did.
Now, on August 11th of 1971, the FBI arrived at the camp in George Mills, New Hampshire, and they arrest Rodney with the help of fingerprint evidence. And Rodney was extradited back to Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, when he called the FBI, they told him, just act normal, don't say anything until people get there. Tell those two girls, do not say anything to anybody. And then that next morning, several cars full of agents rolled in, and they went to the cabin where he was staying and took him out and in handcuffs, put him in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then they matched his fingerprints to his military record.
Yep.
Yeah. So they knew that Mr. Berger was Mr. Rodney.
But see, they extradited him back to California for the what he had done to Tally Shapiro.
Right. Yeah, because Steve Hodel, who was the detective on Tally Shapiro case, he had really fought to have him put on the FBI top 10 most wanted, and it really paid off. So they had called him to tell him that they had him in custody. So
otherwise, he probably never would have been caught.
Right. So he flew to Boston and then jumped in a car and drove 2 hours to New Hampshire to pick him up.
Now, when they extradited him back to California, now by this time, Tally's parents, they had relocated their entire family to Mexico.
Yep.
And they refused to allow her to testify in Rodney's trial.
Yeah, they said they couldn't bear to stay where it was so close to where all that happened. And her dad was in the music industry, and he gave up his job and everything, and they moved to
Mexico.
Puerto Vallarta.
Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Yep.
Yeah, we learned that was on Love Boat.
That was on the Love Boat.
Yep.
Yeah, they moved down there, and then they decided when they called him, they refused to. He didn't want to put their daughter through that stuff.
Yep.
And so they decided just not to come back at all.
But now, since they were unable to convict Rodney of rape and attempted murder without the primary witness of Tally Shapiro, the prosecutors were forced to permit Alcala to plead guilty to a lesser charge of assault.
And child molestation.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit.
It is.
I don't understand. Sorry about that, but I don't see how. I mean, the cops came in. The cops basically seen it happen. They know he was there. Saw him through the window. Seen what was going on. The fellow that was in the car followed him all the way there. They got him dead to rights.
The bar on her neck.
Yeah, everything. Fender had fingerprints on it.
Oh yeah.
So I don't understand. I don't understand his ruling at all.
But yeah, she wasn't able to testify, being out of the country.
Right.
So they got him on what they could get him on.
Yeah. They gave him from 1 to 99 years. And all that depended on how.
1 to 99 years.
Yeah, and that depended on how. That all depended on his mental capacity or whatever of being rehabilitated, and that would be determined by a psychiatrist, I assume.
Yeah,
probably the state prison psychiatrist or someone to that nature. But yeah. So after he only served 34 months, and then they let him out. Yeah,
under this indeterminate sentencing program.
Which is, I guess they just really had a lot of hope for rehabilitation on sex offenders. But
now this allows parole boards to release offenders as soon as, like I said, as soon as they demonstrate an evidence of rehabilitation.
Right. So smooth talking serial
I'm
killer.
fixed. I'm cured.
I'm good to go, dog. Basically, it's smooth talking. I'm sure if he can talk people into doing, he can work the shrinks just as well.
Yep. Just that same month that he was released, he was hired as a photographer for a company to take photos in stores throughout Los Angeles. So he got a job.
Yep, and that was in August.
Yeah, August of '74. Yeah, less than 2 months after his release, he was rearrested for assaulting a 13-year-old girl and identified, in court records as Julie J. That's all they know her by.
Right.
Who accepted what she thought would be a ride to school.
And he kidnapped her and took her and forced her to smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
And then luckily, a park ranger smelled the marijuana and decided to investigate. Mm-hmm. And then we came up, and so he had a 13-year-old girl, and he had drugs. So both of these were probation violations.
Yep. And he was charged with selling marijuana, kidnapping, and violating parole, and was taken to jail for trial.
Yep.
Waiting for trial. And he was convicted of violating parole and providing drugs to a minor and sent to prison.
He was sentenced, I think, for 2 years.
Yeah.
So he had 1 to 99 for almost killing that girl. Mm-hmm. And then they let him out in 34 months. And then he goes right back and does the same thing, and they just give him 2 years.
Yep.
What the heck are they thinking, man?
I know.
this California correction system is just eat up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he got released on probation or on parole after being reformed once again. Then he went to his parole officer and requested to let him go back to New York to visit his relatives.
Yeah.
And it was granted.
How dumb is that?
Oh, Lord, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Now, that same summer of 1977, a female by the name of Ellen Jane Hover, she was 23, is considered missing after being seen with a photographer named John Berger in New York City. And the way they found out was she had it in her calendar notebook that she had a dinner date with this Berger to talk about photos.
Right.
Do some photography work.
And she had a pretty famous dad, right?
Yeah, he owned a nightclub restaurant there in New York. It's called Ciro's. Yeah, she came from a well-known family that owned Ciro's. It was, like I said, it was a restaurant, bar, club there in New York City. It was on, and she was also the goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr.
Right. It's a pretty big deal then.
Yeah, pretty big deal.
Rat Pack.
Yeah. Alcala returned to Los Angeles from New York and was hired as a typesetter at the Los Angeles Times.
So I'm saying there's zero back check.
They ain't not checking anybody.
Nobody's doing any background checking, that's for sure.
Mm-mm. Now, just a couple months later, on November the 10th of 77, the body of Jill Barkham, she was an 18-year-old white female, and she was found in Hollywood Hills area of West Los Angeles, California. And she had been sexually assaulted, bludgeoned, and strangled with a pair of blue jeans. Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the one they said that actually she had 3 ligatures.
Yeah.
Like it was a rope and a belt, and the bare pants finally. But his thing, Donnie, his thing was he liked to choke them out until they almost died, and then he would bring them back.
That's what it was. That's what got him off.
Yeah. And then he would do it again until they didn't come back.
Yeah.
So he was pretty sadistic fellow.
That was his way of, I guess, I've heard it, of keeping arousal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And showing his power, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So he would choke you out to the brink till he said he started to see the light go out in their eyes, and then he would let it go. And if they came back, they came back. And then whenever they came back or came to, he would just do it again.
Yeah.
Damn.
Now, this is the one where they questioned Marlon Brando, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, this was in the same neighborhood that Marlon Brando lived. And they went to his door and questioned him about this to see if he had seen anything.
Right, which he said he didn't, but nobody ever there said they saw anything. But yeah, it was definitely up there where they lived.
Yep. Now, going back to this Ellen Hover, that December of 77, after receiving a call from the FBI pertaining to the disappearance of Ellen Hover, and the man she was seen with, his name was John Berger, that's who Rodney was going by, the LAPD determined that John Berger was an alias used by Rodney Alcala and brought him in for questioning.
You'd think he would change it after he'd already been caught using that name in New York,
Yeah. But without a body or any evidence directly linking Rodney to Hover, he was released from custody.
Right.
So, yeah.
So all they know is that she was last seen with him, and they knew who he was.
Yeah. So. And they knew that was his alias.
And didn't you say Sammy Davis had actually hired?
Yes. So. Sammy Davis Jr. hired a detective to find out what happened to Ellen Hover. Now, just 2 days later, on December the 16th of 1977, the body of Georgia Wickstead. Now, she was a 27-year-old white female, and she was found in her apartment in Malibu, California, after she didn't pick up a coworker, like she normally did, and she had been sexually assaulted and strangled.
Same MO.
Yep, same thing.
Now, when he was working for the L.A. Times, and this is the same time as the Hillside Stranglers.
Yep, same time it was going on.
And the Hillside Strangler, they had a task force built up trying to solve his case. I think it was over 30-something people they had. Anyway, they found out that he was a sex offender, so he was actually questioned about the Hillside Stranglers. And they went to his mother's house and checked him out, but they found out he didn't have nothing to do with that, but they did find he had some marijuana on him, so he got in trouble again.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking at him, but they just still haven't put it together.
Yeah, he's on their radar, but yeah, he's out there still committing murder.
Yeah, I think he just got some kind of small, either a fine or just a county jail time for the marijuana. So it's a real slap on the wrist. Sorry, Rodney.
Mm-hmm. Now, on June the 24th of 1978, the body of an unidentified white female that they just labeled Jane Doe was found in the laundry room of the Illinois Court apartment complex in El Segundo, California.
El Segundo.
Mm-hmm. Just a few days later, a homicide police officer named Richard Place for Santa Monica received a call reporting a missing woman, and her name was Charlotte Lamb. So this was the woman in the...
That was the lady in the laundry room?
Yeah. Now, we're going back to Ellen Hover,
okay,
the one from New York. This same month, in June of 78, the remains of Ellen Hover were found in North Tarrytown in Westchester, New York.
Yeah, I think somebody had told one of the detectives that they knew where this Berger guy liked to take people to take photos because she had actually been. I guess she was a lucky one.
Yeah.
And said this fella had went out there almost 24 times looking, the detective. And most of the time he would find stuff, it would be trash or whatever, but something kept telling him to go back, and then one day he went and he saw something and it happened to be a leg bone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he was really determined to find her, and he did.
Yep. And just a few months later, we're talking about the Jane Doe that was from California, from the laundry room. That was Charlotte Lamb, like we said, and she was identified in September of 78. So just a few months later, she was identified. All right, Dale. We're now going to get into why Rodney is called the dating game killer.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yep. On September the 13th of 1978, Rodney appeared on the dating game show.
Crazy.
Yeah. You remember that show?
Oh, yeah. I used to watch it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That and the Newlywed Game.
Yeah. I mean, it would be either, I guess it was the Bachelor or Bachelorette of the day.
Yeah.
And you'd have 3 bachelors or 3 bachelorettes, and you'd have one person question them, try to pick out who they wanted to go on a date with.
So it'd be like 3 people sitting on stools with a wall between them and the person asking the questions.
Yeah.
So they couldn't see them. They could just ask them questions, and most of them were loaded little sexual innuendos and just being funny most of the time.
So by this time, Rodney was a 10-year seasoned serial killer.
And he was stacking them up already.
And he was on a dating game show, the dating game.
On TV?
Yeah, national television.
Good old
using his real name, Rodney Alcala.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah, sorry.
No background check.
No background check.
We've got an audio clip. We're going to play for that right now.
From Hollywood, the dating capital of the world, it's The Dating Game. Here's the star of our show, and your host, Jim Lyons.
Hey! Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And welcome to The Dating Game. And we'll get right underway. It's time to meet our first 3 eligible bachelors for game number 1. And here they are. Good luck, gentlemen. Well, let's see. Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, he might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome. And it's time to meet our young lady for game number 1, and here she is. Here is a young lady with a wealth of experience. She once earned a living massaging feet, but she quit when her boss suggested that she work her way up. Then she taught school in Phoenix, Arizona, and now she's here to educate our 3 bachelors in the art of amour. Welcome, if you will, sensational Cheryl Bradshaw. Hello, Cheryl. Don't sit down yet. Just a minute. Want to make sure everything is straight. You relaxed? You feel okay? All right. You know there are 3 bachelors over there. There'll be 1, 2, and 3. Ask them anything you like to find out more about them, except their name, age, occupation, or income, okay? And we're going to start by having them say hello to you and see how they sound. Number 1, would you say hello to Cheryl, please?
We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
Okay. And here we go.
Bachelor number 1.
Yes?
What's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime,
Why do you say that?
because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good. Then you're really ready.
I'm a drama teacher, and I'm going to audition each of you for my private class. Bachelor number 1.
You're a dirty old man.
Take it.
Come on, over here.
Oh, honey, we ought to go out and boogie.
Really?
Bachelor number 1. I am serving you for dinner.
Oh,
What are you called, and what do you look like?
I'm called the banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
Later, Bachelor 1. Later.
Welcome back to the dating game, and Cheryl, we have reached the moment of truth, as we call it. You heard from the bachelors, you got some great dramatic presentations, some good answers, but now I'm going to ask you a question. Will that date be bachelor number 1, bachelor number 2, or bachelor number 3? Who gets the dates?
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take 1.
Number 1, bachelor number 1, all right. Well, there they go. However, you did leave one remaining, and this is your date, and I want to tell you something about him, Cheryl. He's a skydiver, so he's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also a fine photographer. Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with the one answer. Well, as far as I can see, Cheryl and Rodney, it looks like the two of you may be involved in some sort of racket. So we're going to have you take to the court. Oh, first you'll receive tennis lessons from expert Naomi Besa of the famous Kirkwood Tennis Club. That starts. And you'll soon be acing everyone off the courts. And to make sure you both look as professional as you'll become, complete tennis outfits will be provided by Bill Darling's Tennis Shop. It'll really make you look like part of the racket set. Then it's off the Magic Mountain, one of America's greatest and most complete amusement parks, with plenty of excitement to challenge any daring dater, like the Revolution that'll help you turn the town upside down, and of course the world's greatest roller coaster, the Colossus. Magic Mountain, just a half an hour north of Hollywood, California. So have fun playing tennis. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you. Okay. You can go relax, meet each other, say hello, get acquainted, and they'll be back. And before we begin our next game, let's find out what runners-up will receive today from Johnny Jacobs.
This woman, there was a woman contestant. Her name was Cheryl Bradshaw.
Right. Yeah, he won the game, by the way.
He won it.
Yeah.
The banana.
The banana.
'Cause
Which
she-
I guess you know if you already saw the clip.
Because she liked bananas.
Yeah.
And they went backstage.
Yep, to get acquainted.
Yeah, and decide what they were going to do and everything. And she got a little creeped out by Rodney.
She got a lot creeped out.
Yeah, I was putting it mildly. She got a little creeped out by him.
She went to producers and said, look, you tell this guy whatever you want to tell him. There's no way in hell I'm going out with him.
Exactly.
I'm not going anywhere with this guy. And she never did say exactly what he said to her, but her spider sense was off the charts.
Yeah.
So she was smart. She saved her own life there, I would say.
Yeah, her words was she found him creepy.
Yeah.
And there was a criminal profiler named Pat Brown and noted that Rodney killed at least 3 women after his dating game appearance. And they even speculated that this rejection might have been one of the factors.
Set him off, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, and
He was rejected.
One of the guys that was contested with him was on Seinfeld, right?
Jeb Hill.
Right, and he said even, with backstage, he was real weird, and he was asking him if he was an actor, and he's like, yes, and really you're an actor, and you're going to be on a game show, so he's just giving him a hard time about it, and just really really weird, and but when it was time to turn on the charm, it's like he just flipped a switch and was a whole different person while he was on camera.
Mm-hmm. Just a few months later, in February of 1979, Rodney offered a ride to a 15-year-old white female.
Right.
She was hitchhiking and persuaded her, asking to take pictures of her for the contest.
Yeah, her name was Monique Hoyt.
And this was some of his MO. He would say that he was a professional photographer. He was running a contest or something along, some little gimmick like that.
He always needed a subject.
Yeah,
but he always had a car full of professional camera equipment and everything, so it always looked legit.
Or promised him to be in a magazine.
Right.
So he had a little gimmick going on.
And said that she was just looking for a ride. He pulled over and asked her where she was going, and she said anywhere but here.
Yeah.
So she jumped in, and then that's when he said, "Do you think maybe we could go somewhere and I can take some pictures?"
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, "I ain't got nothing else to do."
Yeah.
So they head up into. They drove a pretty good ways. I believe. I'm not sure how long it was. Because I want to say 2 hours, but I don't think.
Yeah, they drove up into the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking. But and then so he drove a pretty long way away, and then they got out and walked up through the woods a little bit. So it's just up here. So they took her out in the middle of the woods. You know she's flipping out by now. And then they start doing some photos, which seems legit. So he brought his tripod out and everything and started taking some photos. And then he ended up talking to her into taking her clothes off and taking some more photos. Mm-hmm. And said after being there for a while, she kind of got bored of doing it and was like, "Well, what's going on? What are we going to do next?" He goes, "Well, let's just take a few more. Let's take some silly ones." And she says, "Okay." So she went along with it. He said, "Just pull your shirt up over your head." She said, "Okay." So she pulls her shirt up over her head, and when she does, he smashed her in the head with a rock.
Yep.
Lights out. And then when she woke up, and she looked around and saw him there, and then he choked her out.
Yeah.
So everything went black again.
Mm-hmm.
So he had already done it the first time when he hit her in the head with a rock. He had choked her out. So she came back to, and then when she came back to the next time, it was almost dark. And she was scared to open her eyes, but then she opened her eyes and looked, and he was there. She heard him making some noise, but he was crying.
Yeah.
And this is when she's like, well, her street smarts, I think, kicked in.
She was a very smart kid.
Yeah, and she goes, well, what's wrong, Rodney? What's wrong? And she kind of flipped the tables on him. She goes, well, let's just don't tell anybody what I done, because she's, thinking like she would be the one to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. And told him, she'd had a good time, and she really would like to go back to his place and stay if that would be okay. Yeah. And he said, okay, and then he untied her, and they went down to the car. Mm-hmm. And that's when they headed back. And then when they stopped at a gas station, he just said that he needed to go and use the bathroom for her to stay in the car. And she said, okay, I'll just sit here. And as soon as the bathroom door shut, she bolted.
She was gone.
Yeah. So she smooth talked the smooth talker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she got him.
Yeah, she saved herself.
Yeah. Yeah, she was one of the
very few
that got away.
Yep. And then she went straight to a hotel and run in and started screaming. They were trying to figure out what's going on, and then they called the police. Mm-hmm. And they went and picked him up. After
being identified by this little girl in a photo lineup, Rodney was arrested and admitted to choking and raping her.
Yeah, said at first he acted like he couldn't remember nothing that went on. Yeah. And then the more they talked to him, the more he remembered everything plus some, I think.
And it was just a few months later, Rodney turned in his 2 weeks' notice at the Los Angeles Times.
Right, that's because he's fixing to have to go to trial.
Yeah.
And they still had no idea about any of this.
No.
They didn't know any of his convictions. They didn't know he'd been in prison twice. They didn't know he was getting ready to go to court for
this is a newspaper.
For raping a 15-year-old girl.
This is a newspaper. Do they not publish articles about Rodney Alcala?
Do you think?
Yeah.
Because
they don't read their own newspaper?
Was he Burger there?
No, this was in Los Angeles. He was still Rodney Alcala.
Oh, shit.
That's what blows my mind.
Yeah, and then I think when he turned in his 2 weeks' notice, they all just wished him well, and because he said he was going up north to start a professional photography business, or he had a job doing it. And they wished him well, and they was going to miss him because he was a good employee and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, man, he really had them snowed.
Yeah. Now, Dale, on June 14th of 1971, the body of Jill Parento, she was a 21-year-old white female, and her body was found in Burbank, California.
Found in her apartment?
Yeah. Yeah, Jill Parento, her body was discovered on June the 14th of 1979, and she was Rodney's sixth victim. And she was murdered after Rodney broke into her Burbank apartment. He beat her and strangled her to death. And then he posed her body inside of her apartment, propping her up with pillows.
Yeah. That was another one of his things.
He got to where he was propping them up.
Yeah.
And he even said, I heard an interview that the way he would prop them was he would have them up on pillows and have their legs up behind their head, or whenever they were discovered, the first thing they would see was the privates.
Mm. And even he went as far as to take the lampshades off and do stuff to make sure the lighting was correct.
Yeah.
Just because of his photographer eye, I guess. But yeah, he's a pretty sick guy.
Yeah. And he would burn his victims. He would bite them, leave teeth marks in their breast.
Yep.
And just pretty much mutilate them.
Yeah, he's a pretty bad guy. It's a lot worse than the damn Dayton game killer sounds.
Yeah. All right, Dale. This is part 1 of Rodney Alcala. We're going to end it here because part 2, we're going to get into some deeper stuff.
Yeah, there's a pretty good bit more to go, and I don't want to try to squeeze it in. I don't think it deserves to be.
Yeah, Rodney's a pretty sadistic guy.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of those that you don't really hear about, and I guess because at the same time, the Hillside Stranglers was going on, and so was Son of Sam. So all this was going on at the same time. So Rodney kind of gets pushed to the back, even though to me he's way worse than David Berkowitz ever thought about being. He just run up and shoot somebody in the head in the car and run, wouldn't he?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So I think this guy here is pretty notorious, and he don't really get the press that the rest do as far as being known as a serial killer.
That's right. All right, Dale. I want everybody to listen to part 1 here, finish it up, then we'll have part 2 next week.
Yeah.
And it's going to get even more deeper with some of Rodney's crazy stuff.
Right.
All right. We're going to get out of here. We want everyone to be safe, be careful, and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is
the Crack House Chronicles.